What's going on, boxing heads? In this video, we're going to take a dive into my predictions for this weekend's giant pay-per-view card happening in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Don't forget to leave your own predictions in the comments and let us know which fight you think steals the show on Saturday afternoon. With that out of the way, let's jump right in. Topping the bill of this huge pay-per-view card, we have the rematch between 175-pound royalty Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. A lot of folks were upset with the decision last time. I had Beterbiev winning a close fight, and I won't argue too much with anyone that scored it for Bivol. Bivol fought the best fight he could hope for last time. He avoided getting dropped and seriously hurt by a huge puncher. He landed eye-catching combinations, but still lost the fight. And this was probably because he couldn't move Beterbiev back or stop his momentum. Bivol had to work hard in that first fight. It tired him out towards the end, which allowed Beterbiev to finish strong. I don't know that Bivol can do any better in a rematch, but that doesn't mean he can't win. I'm favoring Artur Beterbiev once again. He looked flat at times in the first fight, and I believe part of the reason for that was because he was coming off a long layoff and a serious knee injury. This will be the first time in years he will have 2 fights in less than 6 months. He's also had more time to recover from that knee injury. I've heard some say that Bivol will be coming into this fight with some confidence because he lasted 12 rounds with Beterbiev. If this is true, and he said he has to, quote, do more to impress the judges, that means he'll open up more versus Beterbiev. He'll sit on his punches, and if he does that, I believe it plays right into Beterbiev's hands. Unless Beterbiev finally gets old overnight, or Bivol can find a way to store an extra gas tank somewhere, Artur Beterbiev wins again Saturday, and I'm going with a stoppage victory. One of the fights bit by the pullout bug on this card was Dubois versus Parker. That was going to be a very good heavyweight fight. Daniel Dubois had been on an absolute tear the last few fights. Joseph Parker was on a nice run of his own in his last couple of fights. Both men were coming into this match with tons of momentum. But Dubois fell ill within days of the fight, and the scramble was on to find a replacement. And boy, did they ever get one. Martin Bakole steps in to replace Daniel Dubois. This is the same Martin Bakole that ended top American heavyweight Jared Anderson's march to title contention. Parker Bakole may not be as good a fight as Dubois Parker, but with this being a truly last-minute replacement, this is as good a fight as you can make under the circumstances. Bakole is a very dangerous opponent for Parker, who was preparing for a very different style of fighter. But we do not know how prepared Bakole is for this fight. He missed the weigh-in and is expected to arrive in Riyadh at 2 a.m. the day of the fight. So that means he's going to be jet lagged. He had a fight lined up in May versus F.A. Ajagba, so he probably had not started camp yet. Considering all of that, it's still a risky fight for both fighters. You have to favor Parker given all what's going on. He's coming off a full training camp, and he flat out asked for Bakole when the options were given to him. Even with the change of opponent, I don't see the game plan changing for Parker. He may need to work a little harder to back Bakole off, but he will still use movement and attack in quick bursts. Just how effective will his attack be against an opponent who's expected to come in well over 300 pounds? We'll have to wait and see. But Parker needs to take Bakole into the later rounds, test his conditioning, and get him into those deeper waters. I'm going with Parker by decision in this fight. Now on to the fight I'm looking forward to the most. This one has the potential to steal the show. Vergil Ortiz versus Israel Madrimov. This fight should be the co-main event, if I'm going to be honest. And I must say, Vergil is in a very tough fight here. When we talk about styles, Vergil is a pressure fighter. He can switch up to a boxer-puncher style, but he's primarily a pressure fighter. Madrimov is a boxer-puncher that loves to counter his opponents. Both of these guys are multifaceted, and their styles match up really well. They're very familiar with each other too. According to Vergil, they've sparred about 50 rounds with one another. And he even said there won't be any filling out rounds needed. So it sounds like there will be no need to download the data. These guys are going to skip the foreplay and jump right in. I'm going with Ortiz in this fight, but I do have some concerns. Style for style, the counterpuncher usually has success versus the pressure fighter. There was a reason why Crawford wasn't very aggressive versus Madrimov. Madrimov's a strong fighter and he's athletic. He can feint you to death and out of nowhere, pounce on you. He's difficult to fight. He has excellent punch variation as well. He can throw all types of different punches. He'll start off with what looks to be a straight right and turn it into an overhand right or a right hook to the body. He's very shifty, and not just defensively, but offensively too. There were a lot of folks that felt like Ortiz did not beat Boachuk. Vergil did not look great in that fight, but we should remember Ortiz had only fought about 2 rounds in 2 years at that point. Now, in the last 6 months, he has 12 rounds under his belt with an absolute monster in Boachuk. As tough as that fight was, it was exactly what Ortiz needed. And in that fight, you saw Ortiz box Volchuk in the center of the ring at times. He looked very impressive doing it, working behind the jab, using excellent head movement. When Ortiz gives himself space, he can evade punches and counter. He'll need to rely on some of this against Madrimov, who will use his counter-punching skills if Ortiz gets too aggressive. Virgil will need to be more cautious and resist being over-aggressive with Madrimov. Ortiz has an excellent jab, and that jab's going to be key to disrupting Madrimov's rhythm and feints. My belief is that Virgil's going to be too fast, too strong, and too active for Madrimov. I believe this fight goes the distance. Both fighters should have their moments, but overall, Ortiz wins this fight on points. On to Carlos Adames versus Hamza Shiraz for the WBC Middleweight Championship. The 160-pound division has been pretty stagnant since the exit of Canelo Alvarez and GGG some years ago, but this is a fight that can inject some life right back into it. WBC World Champion Carlos El Bronco Adames looks to turn back the challenge of the young rising contender Hamza Shiraz. Adames is a boxer puncher that definitely has skills, has power, has talent, but he suffers from inconsistency. You never know which Adames you're going to get. He can switch hit, he can bang with you, but he's also been shook up pretty badly like he was in his fight versus Patrick Teixeira. The thing that stands out the most in this fight is the height difference. Shiraz stands at 6'3", while Adames is 5'11". Shiraz has stopped his last 15 opponents, 7 of which came at the middleweight limit. Shiraz has shown his power stays with him late in the fights also, with TKOs in the 9th, 10th, and 11th rounds. Adames has every chance to pull off the win here, but I'm going with the youth, power, and height of Shiraz to help him get the victory by decision. Another solid heavyweight fight on the undercard is China's Zilla Big Bang Zhang. He's facing German heavyweight Ajit Caballel. I really like Zhang. You don't see many Chinese heavyweights in this game, but he's 41 years old. He's shown stamina issues, especially versus Parker, and he has that dangerous left hand, but Zhang has never recorded a KO after the 6th round. If you can get him past the 7th or 8th round, you've improved your chances to beat him. I think Caballel can give him the kind of trouble Joseph Parker did. Caballel is a shifty heavyweight that can move around on you, be hard to hit, and outwork you with activity. He also goes to the body, which I think might be a key to victory for him versus a 40-year-old opponent. Caballel is also riding on a 4-fight stoppage streak. I don't think he stopped Zhang, but I can see him outworking Zhang over 12 rounds and getting the decision. The awesome thing about a heavyweight fight, though, is that all of what I just said can go out the window with just one punch. Now, for the 2 fights that I'm looking forward to the least on this card, first up is Joshua Buatsi versus Callum Smith. Both of these guys are from the UK. Buatsi had a lot of buzz coming out of the Olympics in 2016, but his career is basically stalled, mainly because for one reason or another, he just hasn't faced the type of competition that would elevate his name. Callum Smith, on the other hand, is a former title contender at 168 and 175 pounds. He's been in with the likes of Canelo Alvarez and Artur Beterbiev, so Callum comes in with more experience at the elite level, even if he's lost each time he stepped up to it. Buatsi at 31 is the younger fighter to Smith's 34 years. I believe Buatsi has the edge in this one, the fresher legs, and not as much wear and tear as Callum Smith does. We may finally get to see Buatsi step it up and live up to the promise that he had so many years ago. And after a very bizarre run of accusations, hospitalizations, and ultimately cancellations, Shakur Stevenson has a new opponent. Not many gave Floyd Schofield a chance to beat Stevenson, but the highly regarded prospect did bring power and aggressiveness to the table. Unfortunately, in a bizarre turn of events, Schofield was deemed unfit to fight due to an illness he suffered the week of the fight. In steps British 135 and 140-pound fringe contender Josh Padley. Like many of you, I would have preferred a higher quality opponent to step in for Schofield, but with less than a week's notice, it's hard to expect Shakur to take on a risky opponent that he didn't get a proper amount of time to prepare for. I checked some tape on Padley. He's an aggressive fighter that likes to throw the left hook. I expect him to go in there and press Stevenson, but he's not on Shakur's level. Stevenson should pick him apart. There's an opportunity here for Shakur to maybe get a stoppage or at least put on a clinic that'll help boxing fans forget his last couple of performances. There's a reason Padley is a huge underdog in this fight. Shakur should win this one easy. I'm predicting a late round stoppage. That's all for now. Let us know which fights you're looking forward to the most and what are your picks for Saturday. We'll be back again with another video where Mark and I will recap the fights, see if any of my predictions held up. See you guys on the next one. PYP is out.